Hello everyone, I'm Margaret Secanet, and welcome to Feng Shui of Buildings and Offices, Part 3 of the Practical Applications of Feng Shui mini tutorials. The basic principles of Feng Shui that is applied to a building or house is also applicable to that of an office. Let's get started. When we look at the Feng Shui of buildings and office locations, we basically are looking at the location and the neighboring structures, landforms such as roads and waterways. This set of rules in terms of where to locate your buildings and head offices would apply probably mostly to those of you who have a say or control in deciding of the office building or where to rent. For the rest, we will have to look primarily at our own desk placement, direction, and the area just around our space. Even this sometimes is difficult as we're probably working with limited option and space. So as a general rule, we want to find balance and harmony in our workspace. Now let's get moving to, okay, the flow of traffic. When we're looking at a layout of our offices or when we're planning the room arrangement and the desk arrangements, we have to kind of look at the flow of traffic and the arrangement of each desk or office table to each other, and they should be carefully analyzed so that there's no negative qi hitting another desk. This is also the case when arranging the office furniture. In advanced feng shui, the Bazi charts of both the boss and the employees are taken into consideration to select the best sector and direction for them, and where to really place their offices. So as we go along, we will look at some of the arrangements. We will look at some of the rules that we have to follow or that is best followed so we could actually create the positive chi flow that we would like to have in our office spaces. And this is also true when we're doing that for our home offices and the work areas that is in our houses. And so there are set of rules that we have to um, go with. Now let's get to the next slide. One of the main important consideration is the main door to your office. So take note of some of the features that is best avoided. If your main door also faces another office's main door, then make sure that both doors align perfectly with each other. Otherwise, negative chi will develop between you and your neighbor. So do not also try to locate your office main door at the end of a long corridor as it acts more like a poison arrow that can affect your business badly. So there are more things to consider. Let's go to another thing that we have to consider. When we're looking at our offices and the location, we also take a look at the foyer, the main foyer. We'll have to make sure that the foyer in front and behind your office main door are well lighted to create the vibrant chi energy. It is also kind of recommended that the reception area not to be directly facing the main door. So there are also other considerations. I'll briefly go through them, um, and so that at least you'll be able to avoid some of this, which are pretty visible as you go and inspect the location or the offices or the area that you are actually thinking of renting or buying probably. So the next point that we have to look at is where the main door are facing. So the office main door preferably should not be facing an escalator, especially if that escalator is also leading directly to the main entrance of the building. It's kind of like a household in our home, we would also not like to have the stairway directly facing the main entrance of our home. Another thing is the office main door should also not directly face a bank of lifts or elevators. As you can see here in this picture, there's a set of elevators, and preferably we would not like to have our office main door facing this bank of lifts, or even more so to avoid facing one directly at one of these elevator. So there are other general guidelines that we would like to avoid or to make sure that we follow, and these are some of them. So let's go to the next one. So whether you work from home or you work at another place, make sure that the that your home office or your work office conforms to this set of important internal rules. If you work in another location, then there are, of course, certain limitations for you to gauge the flying stars chart of your office in order to tap into the positive location to place your desk or office. Therefore, it is then very important that internal forms of your office or desk follow this set of rules. So what are they? What are this set of rules? Let's get. Here are some of the important workspace rules concerning the internal forms that you have to make an effort not to breach. Do work in a bright, airy room where you can receive the morning sun, and periodically open the windows to let the chi energy circulate around you. And this might be easier if you're working from home and you can actually locate your office area in a room that's well lighted and wherein there's a window and you have access to or the ability to open the windows. But it would be a little bit more difficult if you are actually working in a high-rise building, and even with the fact that there might be windows surrounding your whole office area, they might not be you might not be able to open them or let any of the outside air come through to circulate the energy there. So it might be a little bit more trickier if you were working from somewhere else, especially in a high-rise building. So that would actually kind of mean some sort of a constraint for you. Next, we want to um, follow are some other important rules inside your home or inside your workstation or your workspace. It is important that the chi in your home office in area, um, you have to kind of see and take a look around. Like I know, like in this picture here, there's a set of stuff that's piled up, but it's nicely stacked, and the room is actually well lit, so it's still okay. And as long as uh, his desk is not positioned in such a way that it's there's any poison arrows coming at him, I think it would actually be okay. So check to see if you have a cluttered room or perhaps it just needs some airing, especially if you don't use your home office regularly. Declutter and tidy up to enable the chi to move around. Open the windows to let the air in to circulate the chi energy around. Okay, so what else do we have to um, look out for? Now, in an office setting, you try to find an area where it's a little bit more spacious. So do try to work in a spacious room that, if at all possible. And if you are in an open plan system in the office, make an effort to avoid having too many desks in a certain space or clustered together. I know it's a little bit more difficult if you're just an employee and you have no control or say in how the desks are being arranged. If you're somebody or someone who have a say in the arrangement of the desk or the furniture or the layout of the office, then to have this rule in place, so it will actually help with the overall energy and dynamics probably of the whole workforce there. Okay, so let's get on to other things that we have to take into consideration. Now, when you're sitting in your desk, do try to sit in your personal favorable direction if you can. If this is not possible, then try to make sure you don't breach the other workspace don'ts, such as do not sit with your back directly to a door or to a corner. Do not sit with a sharp corner aiming at you or your back. Let's pause here for a little while. From this photo, you could see that there's two sitting position. The one closest to us doesn't really have support in the back. From this picture, you cannot really tell if they're backing onto the door per se, but if they are, then they really is, you know, how do you call it, breaching one of the don'ts that is not to have your back towards the door. Whereas the other one that's backing onto the wall of this office space, yes, certainly they are in the back, but the filing cabinet is placed in such an awkward position that actually the angle of the filing cabinets could actually be probably hitting the person who's sitting in that particular area. So do watch out for some of these things that might not be supposedly a big deal, but in a matter of speaking, they do cause some sachi or energy or negative energy to those people that are sitting around there. So, okay, another thing that we have to be sure that we're not doing is not sitting or having our desk directly under a beam. And from my previous feng shui of houses and feng shui of houses per se, we also take that into consideration when we're sitting, when we're uh, how do you call this, positioning our table, our kitchen, and our living room furniture. We try not to, or even our bed, not to. We try not to have them under the beams, under a beam. Okay, so these are some other rules and guidelines that we have to kind of watch out for. So I think also again we want to watch out for corners and sharp angles, such as this pillar here, which is in the corner, as you can see there. So there's a bit of a sharp angle here. The positioning of this table, shared table, kind of mitigated a little bit, but it's still, the structure is still pretty, uh, it's still pretty visible. Um, and that's why we want to be careful when we're trying to align, or when we're trying to position our desk, that we do not have any of these angles or corner sharp angles or sharp corners pointing at us. Okay, let's get on to another photo here. This is again what we were talking about when we're sitting at our desk or our office table. We would like to have support in the back, or at worst, if your back is actually backing onto a door. So like the feng shui of houses, we would like to have the support at the back and even on our two side, the left and right side. I mean, certainly we have good lighting here because of the windows. We actually also, how do you call it, have enough space. It's pretty roomy, but because I guess because of the fact that the computer table is such as is well, that kind of computer table would actually make it a little bit awkward to have it positioned wherein you will be sitting and facing towards the door. So again, um, the furnitures in the room does make a difference on how you position them, And but then we also have this guideline, so we just have to see to it that these guidelines on the internal forms are not breached, and that we how do you call it, we try to create a good harmonious flow of energy throughout the rooms. So let's go on to another slide here. As you can see here, this might be an area in your home. Maybe you have a loft or some sort of an semi-attic type thing wherein there is empty space where you are not even using. But be aware that you do not place your desk under a slanting or sloping ceiling, and again, a beam. So in this scenario, you might be tempted to locate your office in this area of your home, but be careful of the slope and slant when you're positioning yourself and your desk. If you have the another location in another part of your home where you can locate your office and desk, then best to try find another more regular room to locate your office. Now, if you can't, then and if this is the only room that is available, then site the table at the place where the ceiling is at the highest, or sit where you're not going to be under the slant or the sloping ceiling. Okay, so these are some of guidelines that we want you to have. Finally, keep the area in front of your desk and door wide and spacious, and avoid having a tight and narrow space in front and behind the door. Again, we call to mind the concept of having a bright hall here. So you want to have a bright hall or a clear space in front of you, so you have a good, clear view of what's in front. And likewise, you want to have protection in the back and to the side. So, well, thank you for joining me in this part 3 of our practical applications of Feng Shui series mini tutorials. And join me again for our part 4, our last practical applications of Feng Shui tutorials. I think um, it will be available sometime in July 24. So, join me again, and I thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you in our um, future videos and courses. I will be coming up with some feng shui courses that you will be able to take. They will be, of course, longer than this mini tutorials, and hopefully they will also be helpful to you and for your feng shui journey. So in the meantime, you take care. Bye bye now.